the Town of Durham, Maine Annual Town Meeting. My name is Bill Schneider. I'll be your friendly moderator today. Welcome, and I'm happy to have everybody here. I hope there'll be a few more people kind of showing up as time goes on. I think we should probably start by posting the colors. Post the colors. Please rise.
Halt! Right face. Present arms.
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
About face. Post colors. At ease. Shoulder, arms. Left face. Forward march.
I'd like to thank the fire department for posting the colors, and the Girl Scouts for leading the Pledge of Allegiance. And now I'd like to turn to Stan Allen for a few words of inspiration.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Durham Town Meeting. My name is Stan Allen. I'm the pastor of Shiloh Chapel here in Durham. And I would like to read just a little bit from the Lord's Prayer from the New King James Version, when the disciples had asked Jesus to teach them to pray. This is in Matthew chapter 6, beginning in verse 5. And when you pray, you shall not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the corners of the streets, that they may be seen by men. Assuredly, I say to you, they have their reward. But you, when you pray, go into your room, and when you have shut your door, pray to your Father who is in the secret place, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. And when you pray, do not use vain repetitions as the heathen do, for they think that they will be heard for their many words. Therefore, do not be like them, for your Father knows the things you have need of before you ask him. In this manner, therefore, pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And do not lead us into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For yours is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Amen.
I should say a prayer other than reading the scripture, shouldn't I? Like it says not to use too many words, let's get straight to the point.
I'm going to have you guys introduce you.
Heavenly Father, we come before you in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And we ask for your blessing on these proceedings this day, that you will keep everything in good order. We ask that you bless everyone that came here today, when it would be much easier and more convenient simply to stay home. Lord, we ask for your blessing. We ask that you would help us to do this in a way, this business we have to do today, that is pleasing to you, pleasing to the people of the town of Durham. In Jesus' name we ask and thank you. Amen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Allen. I'd like to ask the Select Board to introduce yourselves, please.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name's Joe Tom. I'm Chair of the Select Board. I'd like to welcome all of you here today. It's certainly been a challenging few days for all, and hopefully we have the crews in here in the next day or so and get us all back up with power, and get those trees cleared out. All right, first up, we have John Quinn in our presence. John Quinn here? John, you want to come on up? Yeah. No, that's okay. Now, I know everybody's having trouble getting out here this morning. I'm joking. All right, come on over here, John. I'm pleased and honored to announce this year's recipient of the Town of Durham Scholarship Award to John Quinn. John's strong academic performance, holding high grades in both high school and while attending college-level classes these past few years. John has, at this point, 30 high school credits, which if anyone is familiar with the high school, it's a 20 credit minimum to graduate, so he's well above the standards to graduate high school. And he's also earned 37 college credits in his time in high school, taking courses at 3 different colleges, and one of those being in-person classes. So he's done a fabulous job with his academic career. His focus has been on math and physics, and he's currently accepted into the physics program at 4 different schools, with more forthcoming. He's got a goal of receiving his PhD in physics and becoming a physicist and working in the field of nuclear theory or condensed matter theory. John also balances his studies out with other interests and pursuits in physical fitness, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, volunteering at the Freeport Community Center, LL Bean Associate, working a work-study program at high school, and tutoring, and participates in the National Honor Society. So for this, we congratulate John for his accomplishments and wish him well with all his future endeavors. Congratulations and good luck. It's well deserved. Taking pictures, your mother. There you go. I'll give you this to keep that in. Good job. All right. So next order of business here. Sorry about all my papers. If I put it on my phone, I can't read it. It's too small. Okay, I'd like to recognize Rich George, our Select Board member. Rich is leaving us now off the Select Board this year as his term's up. Rich has spent 7 years dedicated to the town of Durham in his Select Board role. He's been an integral part of the Select Board and has helped the town greatly during his tenure. We'll miss him. We'll miss his thoughtful input on complex issues, historical knowledge of town decisions, and his entrepreneurial business acumen that he brings to the table. He's helped me greatly in these past 2 years, and I look forward to working with him on other town projects in the future. So a big hand of applause for Rich. All right, and I can't forget all of our town employees, the town staff, fire department, public works teams for all their hard work this year, from everyday tasks to going the extra mile, as we've seen in these storms we've had, these unprecedented storms that have hit us this year. These are the people that make our lives easier and safer on the road, so we really appreciate their hard work. This starts with our town manager and flows down to the fire chief and road commissioner, their teams. Everybody cooperates and does a really good job communicating between the different departments depending on what the issue is and resolving it. So it's much appreciated. Also I'd like to give a big hand to the town employees. And I can't forget all the volunteers that make up all our committees, our boards, our commissions. When you actually take a quick count of it, we have over 60 volunteers that help the town out on a regular basis. It's all of you, everybody in this room and sitting up behind me. So that's a large number of people. So when you start getting down to it, it takes a lot of people to run a town. It's not just the employees, it's also all the volunteer help that makes all these other projects move forward and help advise as we go along. So again, big round of applause for the committees and the boards and the commission members. And thank you all for joining us today. Again, I know it was a challenge these last few days. It sounds like we have another day or so to get through this, and hope everybody remains safe. Your power is restored shortly. Thank you again for coming. All right, you're gonna have to listen to me for a couple more minutes here, and then we'll get moving with the.
Joe, before you do that, let me
Yes, sir.
let me take care of a couple pieces of business. I want to let everybody know that there are some handouts down at the table on the side there that may help you through the ordinance articles. So if you want to go down and get some of those handouts, that might be helpful. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'd also like to have the select board and the budget committee introduce themselves, if you would, the whole board, so that they get a chance to say hello to the folks who were here at the town meeting.
Okay. I'm Joe Tom, Chair of the Select Board.
Rich George, Vice Chair.
Joe Roy.
I'm Heather Roy. Thank you all for being here today.
I'm Josh Klein-Golden.
Milt Simon, Chair of the Budget Committee, live on Stackpole Road.
Jill Gastonguay, Stackpole Road, Vice Chair for the Budget Committee.
Neil Berry.
John Talbot.
Donna Church.
Phyllis Brannon.
Alan Purington.
Jerry Douglas, Town Manager.
Terrific. I also want to announce the election results from yesterday. We had a town election yesterday, and 391 people came out in the nasty weather to vote. We elected 3 members of the Budget Committee: Neil Berry with 227 votes, Phyllis Brannon with 278 votes, and Mark Dare with 249 votes. We elected someone to the RSU 5 Board of Directors, Stacy Howarth, with 189 votes, and we elected Deborah Oliver to the Select Board with 320 votes. I also like to, we've got a couple of kind of preparatory kind of things to get out of the way. First of all, I'd like to move that you allow me to use the main moderator's manual edition of 2021 to guide this, the proceedings of this meeting. If I don't hear anybody shout out no, then I'll assume that everybody agrees. Terrific, thank you. We also have some non-residents and non-voters who may like to speak at the meeting, and we may like to hear from them because they may have some information that we want to hear. So it takes a vote of the town to make that happen. I have a list of people. It includes Jerry Douglas, George Thabarge, Mark Roy, Tia Wilson, Robert Tripp, Calvin Beaumier, and Stephanie Payne, who may like to speak. I'll move that these folks be allowed to speak unless someone yells out no right now. Second. I don't even need a second. I'm looking for universal agreement. Thank you, though. Okay, terrific. Is there anybody else who's a non-voter who would like to speak at the meeting? Seeing none, I'll turn it back to Joe Tom. He's going to do a presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I also, along with the moderator's indication that there were packets and information over on the tables, all this information that we're presenting at town meeting or any backup information is on the town website. So if you do have access to that, then you'll be able to download that, look at that at your leisure, either during the meeting or after. All right. I'm going to go through this presentation. This is going to give you a little bit of highlight of what our thought process was going into town meeting and with the budget especially. So I'll move on here. So we have Article 5. It's an overspent budget that's in that line item for the fire department. This was a line item where the money was not allocated into the correct account. Once it was a matching fund opportunity. So this actually ended up to be an overage on the fire department, and we're just transferring those funds back to where they appropriately need to be. We do need town approval for this use of the general fund to ratify this amount. Municipal budget. Historically, municipal budgets run at approximately 20% of your tax bill. Last year, we were at about 19.6% of your tax bill. In 2024, we've calculated that we're going to be approximately at 16.4%. Moving on to the fund balance. In 2023, we had a fund balance of $3.7 million, or roughly 33% of the 2024's total budgeted appropriations. The general recommendation is that you keep your fund balance at about 16 to 20% of your overall operating budget. In this case, we have well over that recommended value. Select Board recommended this year with the 2024 budget to use $668,000 to bring the unassigned fund balance down towards the recommended range. Based on this recommended fund balance usage, we would be at approximately a 1.8% tax increase at that point, which would certainly be better than having the taxes higher. Based on the Budget Committee's recommendation use, they recommended a number about $39,000 less than the Select Board, and that became a 2.3% tax increase. The difference is that the county tax came in late in the game, and the select board decided to match that, and the budget committee did not during their vote. We're requesting ARPA fund usage. This will be the end of the ARPA funds we were allocated in 2020. There was $44,630 left. We're appropriating that for 3 projects. You'll see those as Article 20, 21, and 22 that you'll be voting on. One's for Eureka Center upgrades to some heating, computer-aided dispatch for the fire department, an ordinance codification effort that we have going on that will make the ordinances easier to utilize by both the staff and the folks in town. There we go. Okay, so you see up here we have the total municipal budget for 2024 at $4,569,599. Less the revenues and general fund appropriations that we've estimated for 2024, that's $3,230,000, and it gets you to a municipal assessment of $1.339485 for this year's 2024 municipal assessment, which is a decrease of 16.2% from last year, the previous year. Oh, sorry. Mill rate impact is, due to 3 things: your municipal budget, your county, and your schools, and also the overlay that we apply for any unforeseen abatements that come along. So that this number may fluctuate slightly with the school budget and with the overlay, but we don't expect a big change here. Again, all in, the 2024 estimated tax assessment of $1.339, which you saw on the previous page. These are all in the budget that was handed out to you. Education, $6,088,292. The county taxes, $742. Overlay at this point is 0, and you have $8.169 million for the total budget. Again, point of this slide is to show that the overlay could be up to 5%. We're usually less than that, but that's where this is going right now. You can see the mill rates off to the right. We're expecting a mill rate of 0.378 at this point. Didn't go. So the idea of using the fund balance to fund this year's taxes and to fund the municipal budget at this point is all in our outstanding bond debt. It's kind of cut off from the page there. I'll give you the value at the bottom, but sorry about the small screen. It's our current debt this year would be $88,482. The idea we've had here was to, we want this to go away in the future. So the idea of applying funds to each of the departments at a steady rate will prevent us from borrowing money later. And prevent us from incurring higher interest rates, which we've all seen those interest rates go through the roof lately, and we don't see an end to it at this point. Again, avoid the tax spikes. This would also avoid spikes year to year if we were to buy a truck or need a vehicle of some sort in one of the departments, or say a larger construction project. It would help keep the town from having to borrow or lease equipment, and again, avoid the interest costs. I get my little pointer going here. It funds the capital reserves consistently, and, of course, it's not going to be steady every year. It will go up as the cost of living moves forward, but it does provide a much steady increase than what we've seen in some of the past years. It'll also give us flexibility to make those purchases when it's advantageous for a number of reasons. It could be the cost of the vehicle, could be the condition of vehicles. You get more flexibility. You don't have to go buy the truck, say, this year if we voted a truck in. You could wait if that truck, say, didn't get used for the amount of time you expected. Maybe you get an extra year out of it. Maybe you get an extra 2 years out of it. But it allows you to have the funds ready at any time to be able to go and purchase such a vehicle or an item along the way without having to come back to town vote to do that. For the fire department reserve, I know it's kind of hard to see with the light here, and you have these little spikes here throughout the years for equipment purchases. That schedule is out on the internet. You can see the vehicles that are projected to be bought at the various years. Our proposal here, with what you see in the articles, is that this is a gradual slope year after year. We're starting with a fund balance in there, and we would add to that fund balance as we move along. Public Works, same. You can see the blue line here is, not as sharp as spikes, but it's consistently at a high rate for a number of vehicles and equipment as time moves forward, but funding it at a 3% cost of living increase year after year at a steady rate makes more sense to fund this, and again, avoid borrowing money is the biggest thing here. Municipal building, although it seems like a small amount, it does add up in the end. That also has some spikes along the way for roofs, potential septic systems, and other things that come up when you have municipal buildings to take care of. So although it's a low amount every year, it's again recommended that we start saving now at a slow rate to get that and make sure we cover those expenses as we move on. So, kind of cut it off the screen here. We got there's a list of all the capital planning going on. We have the starting balances for each, grant matching, reevaluation reserve, the Eureka Capital, Fire, Municipal Buildings, Public Works, and Union Church Restoration Reserve. So this today you will be, if my pointer works, this will be the column in the articles that you'll see that you'll be voting on today. Long-term capital planning, again, this is just the overall value that's in each of the articles. For the fire department, $180,000 in Article 11. Article 12 for the public works at $205,000, and then municipal buildings at $10,000 for Article 13. Again, we'll be assessing or looking at these values we say every 3 to 5 years, although we're showing the curve at a 3% increase every year. Maybe next year we don't need to go to 3%. Maybe we go 0, maybe we wait. It's a decision the board will have to make along the way, but more than likely it will be just a gradual slide as we go year to year. So I'm going to flip to land use ordinance amendments. Article 24, we have the housing density, or what's been called affordable housing, LD 2003. Certainly, this allows a second, smaller accessory apartment with any single family home. It also increases the lot size when multiple full-sized units are proposed, and the changes do align with the comprehensive plan, and while keeping with the rural character of Durham, it is a blended solution. So it's a lot of work that's culminated over the last 2 years to get us to this point. So. State law is going to be implemented on July 1st, which is slightly less restrictive than what we have here as our Article 24. So that will come regardless of which way the vote goes here today. Solar energy systems, Article 25, we currently have no standards for any solar systems in town. This article will put those performance standards in the ordinances so that folks will have to come to the planning board or code enforcement officer to ensure they comply with the regulations and even just basic regulations like electrical codes and have somebody look over that. So it is important to get those ordinances in place. Codification of certain fees, Article 26. Again, based on input from our town attorney, this article adds a definitive list, a fee list into the ordinance. Or against our ordinance allows the select board to periodically look at this rather than just annually. Fees do change along as time moves forward, and it makes more sense for us to have the latitude to adjust accordingly with the industry. Union Church property restoration account, that's Articles 17, 27, and 28 today. As everybody knows, we had some safety concerns brought up last summer. We went out and did a structural analysis of that building as a result, also a code assessment and safety assessment. All that information came back, structural, the building is structurally sound. There were no major items found. We are still aware there's some work to be done on the sills. There were some upgrades, like numbering the building for the fire department to find it in case of a fire or any other event, and some other minor upgrades to the alarm system and organization of the contents of the building. Union Church Committee was formed on or about the same time last summer. They've taken the reports, looked at a number of options for use of the Union Church, and feel as though that keeping that as a meeting place for the society and a place for the town folks to view their history is in lines with where we want to move forward with. Based on their recommendation to the select board, budget committee, the Durham Historical Society, the Durham Historical District Commission, all support this transfer of the property. And along with the funds that we've already raised for this effort, to transfer those funds over to the Historical Society, and with the select board overseeing the expenditure of those funds as they're used for the Union Church. So we believe this is a really good thing for the town, great for the history of the town. The Historical Society have been awesome stewards of all the contents, the buildings, and other buildings in town that they are in control of. We feel as though this is the right move for the town moving forward. So thank you for everybody involved in that. That was a lot of work this year. Okay, we have some future challenges. Property reevaluation. That is one of the articles to add funds to the evaluation process. We essentially, the majority of the funds that we're expecting to expend are in this year's budget. So that would get us to move that forward. The ECD for that is 2027, but we're working with the folks that do those audits to see if we can pull that in and have that done sooner. But with the money there, we'll be able to just move and put a contract in place right away, especially if they're able to do it sooner. That is very important for everybody to get the valuation done. Potential transfer from a calendar to a fiscal year budget. We've talked about that over a number of years here. It is time to start seriously looking at that, and that'll be one of the things that the select board will be doing this year, is more seriously looking at that and presenting something to the town. I'm expecting next year. Long-term plan for solid waste, we have a solid waste committee stood up at this point. They have a direction to look at ways to save tonnage, to reduce the cost of how much we're paying for solid waste. That picture doesn't look good moving forward from the standpoint of it's very expensive to throw away trash. It's really that simple. So other ways to get rid of waste and an ecological manner is what we're looking at, and there are a number of avenues we can pursue. We do have a contract that will be put in place based on the vote here we're putting a contract in place for the next year's trash. That is will be a multi-year contract. It's currently I believe a 1-year contract right now, Jerry? 5 years, I'm sorry. It is a 5-year contract, but we will see those costs with tonnage go up year to year from this point forward. So we have about 5 years to plan something out, hopefully implementing small items or small projects along the way that reduce the tonnage, which will keep the cost down, and then hopefully getting to a larger plan by the 5-year mark. GP Cog is coming in pretty soon. They've done a grant. It's a full grant to assess our town buildings. As everybody's heard, the town office is tight over there. They're going to be looking at all of the facilities in town that the town owns and looking at that for office space and other avenues to utilize what we have and possibly expand. That will include looking at the plan that was done, I believe, in 2007, which was quite some time ago, to add to the town office. But that'll be a project that we'll be looking at, and again, coming back next year to you with hopefully a direction as to where that might go. So I think that is all I have. Again, thank you all for coming here today and for listening to me. Appreciate it. You guys have a great day, and looking forward to working with you all in the future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Is there another presentation before we get started?
Hi, everybody. My name is Tia Wilson. I'm a former resident of the town of Durham. I lived here for 21 years. I am the chair of the Durham Historical Society, and I have been on it since 2008. I would like to take a moment to explain to you the 3 warrant items relevant to the Historical Society that you will be voting on today. If the warrant passes, the Durham Historical Society will have the opportunity to take ownership of the Union Church, which was built in 1835. It has been the home of the Historical Museum since 1988, as well as our home. Currently, the town of Durham owns the building, and therefore they are the current stewards of the building. On March 3rd of 1979, the town of Durham created the Union Church Restoration Fund by appropriating $2,000 into that account to be designated for the restoration of the Union Church. Since then, the town has voted consistently to add money into this account to be used for restoration, bringing the total to nearly $70,000. This account sits at approximately $21,000 today. For nearly 25 years, the Historical Society has been requesting that the building receive the much-needed repairs to the back corner of the church, which currently has severe rot as well as foundation issues. Even though there was money set aside in a restoration fund for the building, the Select Board, over the course of 25 years, has deferred these repairs, causing the deterioration to worsen. Today, I'm here to explain to you the importance of receiving your yes vote on all 3 of the following warrant items. Article number 17 is to transfer the $9,543 that was voted at last year's town meeting to be used towards the renovation of the Union Church. After several requests from the Historical Society to use these funds for the renovations, the money was never approved for the use by the Select Board. Therefore, you are voting to transfer these funds into the Union Church Restoration Fund. Article 27 is for you to vote to transfer the deed of ownership of the Union Church over to the Durham Historical Society. This includes the stipulation that the building will be continued to be used as a museum for the town residents. And if it isn't used, it will transfer back to the town of Durham. The last article, number 28, will be to approve the Durham Historical Society access to the Union Church Restoration Fund in order for us to spend the allocated funds towards the renovation of the Union Church. This would give us control to hire historic renovation contractors. If you vote to transfer the $9,543 into this fund from article number 17, it will bring the remaining balance of the restoration fund to $31,175. These funds will be held at the town and released upon the select board's approval with the proof of invoice of costs. We currently have estimates ranging from $50,000 to $200,000, which would also include the rotted sill foundation, siding, windows, and the parking area. The Historical Society will be responsible for raising the rest of the funds, which would not impact taxpayers. If you vote yes to all three of these items, you'll be granting the Historical Society permission to proceed with the much-needed repairs of the Union Church and to take ownership of their home. By voting yes, you will be part of the monumental step in preserving Durham's history. The Historical Society volunteers are dedicated and willing to take on this extremely important task and would be honored to dedicate their time to preserving this historical landmark. There are also flyers out front that I encourage you guys to take. It explains currently what the building looks like inside and what it has looked like since 1988. And there are also member bios of all of our volunteers. So I encourage you guys to pick one up and read it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I hope everybody's ready to start the hard work. Oh, what's that? Oh, there's another presentation. I'm sorry. The hard work will have to wait.
So perhaps I've given you a reprieve. My name is Stephanie Payne, and I am the president of the Freeport High School Scholarship Foundation, which is a 501c3 that was organized in 2021 to provide meaningful, transformational scholarships to students in our communities. We have currently 7 scholars, 3 of which live in Durham and receive large scholarships, $5,000 a year for 4 years. In addition, we provide our students with mentorship opportunities. So each student is paired throughout the time that they're having their scholarship going through college or a trade school program with a mentor. These mentors are from all over our community, and they meet with them at least monthly to provide the much needed support. And although the financial support is huge, we are so proud of the mentoring that happens, because for so many of these students, having a significant adult person in their life that's helping guide them through this next chapter is just transformational. So today I'm asking you to support the Freeport High School Scholarship Foundation. We'll be awarding at least 2 more scholars in May, and those students will be paired with their mentors and then receiving scholarships for up to 4 years. As I mentioned before, we do provide scholarships for students, not only for 4-year programs, but for trade and vocational programs. So we really feel like we're supporting a broad variety of kids and want to continue to do that work. Last year, we had 32 applications, and we could only give out 3 scholarships. So we know the need is there. Kids we evaluate our students based on their ability to provide, they provide some financial information, so they need to show need, but they also need to be strong students, and they need to be involved in their community. So that might look very differently for different students, but we look at the whole child and try to provide that support. We work closely with members of the community, the high school community. Kids apply online, and we work closely with them to choose the students each year. And please pick up, we have brochures, trifolds, there's some out there, and you'll see one of Durham's own, highlighted it in the middle, and she is currently studying, and we're very proud of her. So I hope you'll consider supporting this wonderful nonprofit. We have opportunities for volunteers. I'll do a quick plug. So if you're interested in being a mentor, we need mentors. Jen Galetta from Durham just joined our board, but we're looking to have more individuals from Durham on our board and committees. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I hope you'll pick up a brochure and learn more about the great work we're doing. And good luck to you today, and hope everybody's power comes on. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Now on to the hard work. I'd like to set out a couple of rules, kind of guidance for the debate we're going to have today. You may want to talk about some of the articles. You may want to provide some information or debate them. I'd ask that one person at a time only speaks, and that you come up in an orderly way to the microphone that was just used for the presentations and prepare to speak. I'd ask when you get to the microphone to please introduce yourself, tell us who you are, where you live. I'd also ask that you address your remarks and your questions to me, not to somebody else in the audience or a member of the select board. Ask the questions of me, and I'll find somebody who has the information who can answer them. We've got quite a number of articles, so I ask you to keep your remarks brief as you possibly can. I find that quick, kind of pithy remarks make more of an impact than a long, drawn-on statement. So I think if you keep that in mind, you'll do well. And I'd also like to have us remember that we're all neighbors here. We're all here because we love the town of Durham. We're all here because we want to make a difference, and I think everybody will respect that when people get up to speak. Last thing is, I want to remind you that there are lots of goodies out in the hallway, and I'd encourage you to take full advantage of that. So, let's start the work. Article 4, to see if the town of Durham will vote to raise and appropriate an amount not to exceed the 2023 Durham municipal budget for any budget articles not approved in this warrant. Is there a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that Article 4 is approved. Is there discussion? Okay, not seeing any discussion. I will ask, if you wish to approve Article 4, please raise your card into the air. Please put them down. If you do not want to approve Article 4, please raise your card into the air. By a clear majority, Article 4 is approved. Article 5, to see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer $3,235 from undesignated fund balance to cover fire department expenditures above the approved 2022 fire department budget. Is there a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that Article 5 is approved. Is there discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. If you wish to approve that article, please raise your card into the air. Thank you. Please put them down. If you wish not to approve or to disapprove of that article, please raise your card into the air. A clear majority having voted for Article 5 is approved. Article 6, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $689,991 for general government. Is there a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that Article 6 is approved. Is there discussion? Okay. Please come to the mic, introduce yourself, and share what you'd like.
Jill Gaston-Gay, Stackpole Road. I guess what I wanted to bring to everyone's attention before we vote on department spending articles is that this year's presentation of the budget was different in past years because we had work with an outside accountant who realigned our expenses. So some lines come in different departments now and things like that. And although your final tax impact this year may appear minimum, we are using a fair amount from our savings account, so to speak. So we all need to keep in mind what the future's gonna look like when that savings account is lower. So from what I could calculate, we are using some of that savings account to cover our capital reserve, but what we're not using to cover capital reserve is looking to be about a 10% increase in our spending budget this year. And you have to assume that new high number is going to be the starting point for years going forward.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? Mr. Berry?
Mr. Moderator, what's the process for amending a money article like this? If I want to reduce the money on this article, how do I do that?
You would make a motion to amend. You can amend an article like this downward, but you can't amend it upward.
Right. And do I speak to why I want to do this before or after the motion?
You would make a motion to amend. If there's a second, it would be on the floor for discussion. Then we would have a vote on the amendment. And then depending on what that vote is, whether it amends the main motion or not, we'd have a vote on the main motion.
Okay, so I just need 6.
Are you all set?
Yes, Mr. Moderator. I move we amend this motion, this article to the amount of $684,991.
Is there a second? I see 2 seconds. So it's been moved and seconded that Article 6 is amended to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $684,991 for general government. Is there discussion? Mr. Simon.
I, for one, would like to know why the difference, what he's proposing, the difference of the $5,000.
I didn't hear that.
The amended motion is $5,000 less, and I'd like to know if he has something specific in mind.
I'd like to
Berry.
know that too.
Mr. Moderator.
Yes, please.
Deborah Purinton, I live on Day Road. I would appreciate it if, whether it's a select person or a budget committee member, if they would leave the table to make amendments on their own, that this is not a recommendation from the budget committee.
I think that's a great idea.
Thank you.
I think as this meeting progresses, if anybody from the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Budget Committee wants to depart from their the group's recommendation, I'd ask you to come to the main microphone and do it like that. Mr. Berry.
Mr. Moderator, I didn't make this recommendation. I voted against it. So, but I'll comply.
Thank you. Can I? Yeah, yes.
So I made this, is this on? I made this motion at the Budget Committee meeting as well, and there was a tie vote because we had one member missing, so it failed. So the Budget Committee was split on my motion, which is why you see what you see today. I'm making this motion because there were a lot of changes in the budget this year, as Jill said, about department moves and people and personnel. It was very difficult to compare this year to last year. And by the way, the numbers you see in the budget, in the warrant, in the town report, are comparisons to budget, not actual. So this year, We give out very significant raises to everybody. The town manager got a 10% raise. And there's a lot of, in my opinion, room in this administrative budget to take $5,000 out. And I think we should do it. That's why I moved this.
Is there further discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Michelle Richardson, Patriot Way. I just had a clarifying question for Mr. Berry's comment. I'm looking at the numbers and I see 23 budget, 23 actual, 24 budget. Am I reading that correctly, that shows the actuals as well as the previous budget?
Mr. Tom, can you answer that?
That's correct. So we can see the actual spending versus what the budget is for the upcoming year? Okay.
What did she say? She wants to see it.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess with that information, I would say I'm not in favor of the amendment. I think we're going to be here till tomorrow if we start just randomly picking numbers to remove from the budget without a specific item that it's associated with. I understand that you can't identify where the cut comes in the future. It's based on the article number or the group, but I'm in favor of what the Select Board and the Budget Committee have recommended. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? Okay, so what we'll do first, seeing no one else who would like to address the question, we'll have a vote on the amendment. And the amendment was to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $684,991 for general government. All in favor of that amendment, please raise your card. Okay, put them down. All opposed to the amendment, please raise your card. A clear majority opposes the amendment, so the amendment is defeated. Now we'll move on to the main motion. It's been moved and seconded to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $689,991 for general government. Is there discussion about that? Seeing none, we'll move on to a vote. Everyone who approves of Article 6, please raise your card. Everyone who does not approve of Article 6, please raise your card. A clear majority having approved of Article 6 is approved. Article 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $622,495 for public safety. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Been moved and seconded that Article 7 is approved. Would anyone like to speak? Terrific. Please introduce yourself and share your thoughts.
Will Werder, Patriot Way. I was just hoping that if somebody could speak to, just as an example, on the last thing that we just did. We voted against the amendment and then approved the item.
Right.
What would have happened? Could somebody speak to what would have happened if we had not approved that item?
Sure.
From a process standpoint.
Yeah. That's kind of a procedural question.
Yeah, it's a procedural question.
That I can answer. If you had approved the amendment, then that amendment would have changed the main article. Mm-hmm. And then we would have voted on the main article with the changed number in it. Since the amendment failed, the number in the main question stayed the same.
Understood. But what if we had disapproved the main article?
Disapproved both?
Well, yes.
That would set kind of things into a little bit of an unsettled situation that would probably require the town selectmen and the board of what is that board?
Budget committee.
Yeah. Article 4 does answer that question. That's a great point. Article 4 that you passed earlier says that if you disapprove any of the articles, that it'll be funded at the rate that it was last year.
Okay.
So that's a much better answer. But they still may want to go, if the article was disapproved, they still might want to go back, kind of rejigger the numbers, and then come back to a special town meeting. Yes, please.
Tyler Hutchison, Hallowell Road. I was just wondering if there was any information that could be provided on why it's a 15% increase to the fire department budget this year. It just looked like a much higher than historical norm.
Is there someone who can answer that question? Yes. Yes, please, Chief.
Chief Tripp, Mr. Moderator, give me a minute for a public address, if you will.
Of course.
Give me some leeway before I fall on the sword. Thank you all for coming. Just to let you know, we have no updates from CMP. I cannot tell you about power, who gets it, who doesn't. I know you're laughing, but we're all in this together. We do have water at the fire station. There is a garden hose out front, in front of the bay. It's ready to go. It's on off. You don't have to knock on the door. We've given all our buckets away, so please bring a bucket. It is potable. You can drink it, flush it, cook with it. You bought it, so stop by. Next, we've had some issues with the Eureka Center, again, with the generator not working. If you voted yesterday, you saw us sort of under, some difficult situations. I certainly appreciate all the town employees' assistance with that. They did a phenomenal job. That being said, if you have something to charge, if you need to warm up, please stop by the fire station. Currently, that's only staffed 7 to 7, which is this 15% increase. But if you need anything, stop by, ring the doorbell, knock on the door, and we'll provide what we can for you, because it is your fire station. And unbelievable job by the honor guard, huh? I mean, that was unbelievable. Thank you. Mr. Moderator, to answer that question, the fire department is requesting a 15% increase in its budget, and a majority of that goes to night coverage. That's EMT coverage. 35% of our calls are now at night, 7 at night to 7 in the morning. That equated to 100 medical calls last year. And all our EMTs have moved out of town. One's moved to Bowdoin, one got hired, moved to Auburn, one's in South Freeport. I can continue. We just don't have the volunteer EMTs to get out of bed, drive to the station, and then drive to the emergency call. When we have a per diem in quarters, that's a 4-minute out the door. When it's staffed, we don't have anybody at night, it's 14 minutes. And that usually means me getting out of bed in Pownell, driving to the station, getting on the ambulance, and going to a medical. As a perfect example, last night, Auburn Fire requested our ambulance at midnight, and we couldn't staff it. We had to say, I apologize. So an ambulance had to come from further out to that victim. I assure you, if it was a Durhamite, we would have been there, but we just couldn't staff it. So that 15% is legitimately asking for night coverage starting Monday night, 7 at night. Those are basic. They're averaging, I think EMTs are averaging about $17 an hour, which is $1.25 less if you want to go to Target. They'll make more there. But these guys are volunteers, and they're doing it for gas money. So we are requesting for the next 9 months night coverage. That's just one person to staff the ambulance. Most of them are firefighter EMTs, cross-trained, so they can get a pumper truck out the door. As you know, I think we've done 24 calls in the last couple days, chimney fire yesterday, 3 motor vehicle accidents. The boys just went on one Carver's tree this morning. Those happen at night, so that's where the majority of that increase comes from.
Thank you, Chief. Does that answer your question? Awesome. Anybody else like to speak? Yes, please.
I'd just like to say that Chief is a very humble person, and he is the person who responds 24 hours a day. And this coverage allows for him to work a more normal schedule and is a little bit safer, right? Some days he's going without sleep for very long stretches of time because he's responding to these calls because he has to. And so providing this coverage is not only necessary for the department, but also for us to be able to support the chief in the work that he's doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, please.
Phyllis Brannon, Brookside Drive. How would services or service levels be impacted without the approval of this proposed budget? And then the second question I would have would be, if this is approved, what additional support is necessary to sustain this.
Thank you very much. Is there an answer? Chief?
Without throwing fear and people will die comments. You go from maybe not getting an ambulance is the bottom line, or mutual aid, which there's no guarantee. If you're waiting on a United ambulance out of Lewiston, they may or may not be available. Lisbon's only running 2, sometimes 1 at night. Sincerely, you would be better off at night calling for an Uber. You would get better service and more timely transport to a local hospital. We can't continue with the model. A little history I've told with Chief St. Michel in the building. This vote was actually brought up 8 years ago, roughly 2016, and several choices were given. You know, a day coverage, 1 person per diem, 24-hour coverage, that type of thing. It was chosen 8 years ago to just do the day. You've all survived another 8 years with that budget. But with the call volume, over 400 calls, with the night EMS, with the aging population, we just can't continue it with volunteers at night. There has to be somebody staffed. And that's just 1 person. That's not a full-time benefited employee. That's literally just a stipend EMT being there. A lot of these kids are putting themselves through paramedic school. But the difference is, instead of 4 minutes out the door and then another average 12 to 14 getting there, it's 14 minutes to get the ambulance out the door and another 14. That's just shy of a half hour to get an ambulance to your house. I've said this before to the board and the budget. Durhamites are tough. They really are. And they fight all day long with some type of ailment, and they usually wait till midnight till they can't take it anymore, and they call. That laughter is just positivity of affirmation that that's what happens. Without the budget increase, I can't tell you. People will wait. Hopefully an ambulance comes. I can't guarantee it. You really handcuff the fire department that way. Going forward, I budgeted just the 9 months for the positivity if it does vote positive. If it doesn't go through, I don't know. Next year will be the next 3 months, what we're at, the January, February, March increase, to continue it budgetarily. At that rate, or if they get a raise, we're certainly bound by state and federal minimum wage requirements. We've had a painting party. I think it cost the town $12 in paint to get a room ready to go. We'll get a bed in there or a cot, whatever we need. But I do have volunteers lined up. That's probably the next question. These men and women will take those shifts, and they will respond. And they will get out the door in a timely fashion, and they don't get enough praise. They certainly, by me or anybody, responding October 25th to Lewiston, other mutual aid, gun violence, that type of thing, they do it quietly. And they save lives, and they don't get enough credit. So hopefully that answers the questions.
Thank you, Chief. Does that answer the question? Great. Yes, sir.
Kevin Netto, Quaker Meeting House Road. I actually worked with Chief St. Michel on that proposal several years ago and looking at the various options. And one of the reasons we settled on the option of day coverage per diem only was that at the time, the per diem market could easily support that. The labor market was different, the economy was different, but it's different now. Durham's been fortunate to have hung on to our per diem pool as long as we have, but that becomes more and more of a challenge. So I wholeheartedly endorse this budget request and the additional service provided in the evenings. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to speak? Yes, please.
The chief is pretty humble because a lot of the impact is on him. When he works all day and then he's called out at night.
And you need to introduce
is it on?
yourself.
Oh, sorry, Jerry Douglas, town manager. So a lot of the impact on this is on the actual chief. He works all day, and then when he gets called out at night, he runs ragged. And we do not want to run our employees ragged, or we will lose them. And we do not want to lose Chief Tripp. So I fully endorse and support that increase. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
So I know I asked the procedural question in the beginning. I just wanted to add, I've certainly been, moved by the things that have been said about this to vote in favor of it personally for the article as proposed.
Thank you very much. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, Article 7 has been moved and seconded as written. It's time for a vote. Everyone who'd like to approve Article 7 as written, please raise your card. Thank you. Put them down. Everyone who would not like to approve Article 7 as written, please raise your card now. Terrific. A clear majority having voted to approve Article 7, it is approved. Article 8, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $1,843,228 for public works. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that Article 8 is approved as written. Is there discussion? Yes.
Jill Gastonguay, Stackpole Road, still. Question about the solid waste. I would like to have a rumor clarified, if somebody's able to clarify it. There has been a rumor that Casella is going to be going to the big blue and green containers on wheels. Is that accurate?
Can someone address that rumor? Mr. Douglas?
Yes, that's accurate.
And can somebody answer the question of how much trash those containers hold?
Can someone answer that?
It was for various sizes. That hadn't been decided yet.
So is it possible it could be more than the 25-gallon barrels that we're allowed right now?
Ms. Roy?
When Casella came to give us their presentation, there were two different sizes. One was 60 gallons. I don't recall what the other one was, but I think it was more than 60 gallons. And that comes not this year. They're saying that would take 18 months to 2 years before we would move to the automated system. But what the board had discussed at the time were the 60-gallon each containers.
So can somebody please answer the question? We are in a 5-year contract, so that means we are contracted to then go from 25 gallons to 60 gallons every other week with our stickers. Has that been considered when considering this 5-year contract?
Can someone answer that? Ms. Roy?
The stickers go away.
Okay, so my next question. So now when we get to these 60-gallon containers, I'll be allowed to put out 60 gallons of trash once a week versus what I'm currently able to do, which is 25 gallons of trash every other week. And if I have extra trash, I have to determine how I want to pay for that. And it sounds like with this plan, the town will take up that extra tonnage. Is that correct?
Is there an answer?
Hi, Rich George. It is correct that it's going to be more tonnage, but at the end of the day, if we do want trash pickup, we're not really left with any options. It's 25 pounds, not gallons, that you're allowed to do now. What the weight equates to in a 64-gallon drum versus the trash bag, but it's 25 pounds that you have the option of now, not gallons.
Okay, so I just want to express concern about how much additional tax cost this is going to be since we're in a 5-year contract.
Can anyone address that? Yes, Rich.
First and foremost, I'm not 100% sure where we're at with these comments, but again, as far as the town goes, we are limited in terms of what we are able to do for trash. We don't have a lot of options. The town is being proactive in regards to setting up a committee that is looking at various responses. We don't have all the answers, and I don't think anybody up here can give you all the answers. It's impossible. The market is fluctuating in the trash and the recycling business as much as anything that we're seeing in the world today, as far as from an economic standpoint. So there's not a lot of clarity that we can provide other than what the contract currently is and what Casella is going to be mandating going forward.
Mr. Moderator, my only addition to that is this went out to bid. This was the only bid that we received. So if this is voted down, there would be no trash pickup after June 1st, June 30th. So starting July 1st, there would be no trash pickup. So this was the only option that we received, which is part of the reason we were proactive in creating this committee in the hopes to answer these questions and lower the town's costs in the future.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Moderator, Alan Purington, Day Road. I certainly was, I don't know to say involved, but I was aware of when Casella made this presentation to the Select Board. And when they made that presentation, they were suggesting that this process would take at least 18 months to come to fruition. And in doing that is because they would have to purchase new vehicles to do that. It's a mechanical hand that will actually grab those containers. They are 64-gallon containers, and you basically can fill them up. I would assume that the majority of the people, based on what I have observed, are not going to be putting those out every week. So in doing, Casella would be providing a container for trash and a container for recyclables. And these would have their own code on them, so you would not have to have a tag to utilize on those. One of the challenges that's going to be in providing those two containers to each individual homeowner would be that they have to be spaced 3 feet apart. In order for that, basically that arm comes around, grabs it, excuse me, and it throws it back into the unit. Not only is this a challenge for, I won't say it's a challenge for homeowners, but putting these onto the side of the road. The big challenge that I see, based on being involved with the planning board, is new subdivisions, which are private roads. These haulers do not go on private roads. So, for an example, if you have 12 houses, you're going to have 24 containers out there which have to be spaced 3 feet apart. If they're on the side of the road, it can create a serious safety hazard, especially if it's on a main drag. If you're on the end of a dirt road, it's not a problem. I spoke to Casella actually yesterday. I spoke to the driver. And I've always been a proponent of, if you want to see what's really going on, talk to the user. Don't talk necessarily to the people up here that don't get down in the trenches. So how is this going to work for them? They're basically doing it to eliminate workman comp issues for them. Anybody that sees somebody chucking these things into a truck, they're going to have shoulder injuries. And I can understand where Casella's coming from. But in talking to a driver, I asked him, I says, what's the benefit going to be? Do you prefer picking up individual households, or in this case, a development where you have 12? Which do you prefer? He says, well, it's much more efficient for us to pick it up right at the curb, even though it may be 12 houses. All well and good, and I'm quite sure that the Solid Waste Committee will be addressing this, all well and good, but my concern is what about the safety of anybody coming back with a big truck there on the side for through roads that have multiple houses on the end. So there are some, we have time to address it, But we really, and like I say, they were talking 18 months for this to happen. We have to address it, and my biggest concern is with subdivisions. I'm not against subdivisions, I'm concerned about the safety. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes.
I just want to clarify, Joe Roy, Pinkham Brook Road. I just want to clarify, this year's budget is for trash to remain exactly the same as it is now. Any discussion about changing sizes or style of pickup was just an option that was explored just at the surface level when Casella came to talk to us, but nothing has changed. They just informed us that after this year, we'll have to explore different options. So what we're proposing right here has nothing to do with automated pickup or changes in bucket size or removal of tags. Trash pickup will be the same this year as it was last year, and that's what this proposal is.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, that's pretty loud. Emily Sampson, Orchard Lane. I'd love to see an option for industrialized composting in Durham, either through something like Garbage to Garden. I would pay extra for it. I'd drop it off at the town office. I'd pick it up here. You can also go into Garbage to Garden's website and request it here in Durham. But that would reduce our trash, and it would be better for the environment. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Kevin Netto, Quaker Meeting House Road. So I have a question on the contract. Are we presently in a 5-year contract, or are we looking at signing a contract this year for 5 years?
Can someone answer that?
No, we're not currently in the 5-year contract. The contract we currently are in right now expires June 30th.
So are we looking at signing a 5-year contract before June 30th?
Yeah, and it's dependent on whether it passes town meeting.
We're not voting on a contract right now,
No,
right?
you're voting on the solid waste number.
On the amount to spend for
Right,
this year.
and if you don't, there will be no contract.
I see, because part of the money we're voting on right now would actually be authorized with Casella via that contract.
Correct.
Okay, so if this is a 5-year contract, and if at some point over the next 2-3 years, whatever, they want to, or in essence mandate us to go to the automated pickup, which personally I'm okay with, but Alan triggered a couple of questions. I guess I would encourage, if the contract hasn't been signed, to make sure there's some sort of an opt-out clause, so that if they come to the table and they want to mandate this container program, and for various reasons the town decides, you know what, that doesn't make any sense because of the private road issue or whatever, that there is an avenue for us to get out of that contract and go another way if the solid waste committee that's been formed comes up with a better option. But I agree with what Rich said, though. The options are very limited, especially for a rural municipality. But I think having that some sort of opt-out language, so that if we do have a way to get out if the container thing is just not going to work.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Michelle Richardson, not on solid waste. I was curious about the paving number. It looks like we approved 375 last year. We only spent 285, and we're looking for 400 this year. I am in favor of the 400. I'm curious why we didn't spend as much as we had approved last year. Was it a weather thing? Was it a people thing?
Does anybody have an answer to that?
Maybe Calvin?
So the reason for the...
Could you introduce yourself, please?
I'm Calvin Beaumier, Road Commissioner, Town of Durham. Obviously, Town of Durham, I'm here. Last year we had some issues with, we couldn't complete all the paving because sections of the road were deteriorated to a point that we had to, I made the decision not to waste money putting pavement over it, decided to tear that up and repair it. So we postponed that, and so we couldn't complete. And the other reason is the cost of pavement is dramatically increased this year. We were on a 3-year contract before, where we signed that back in 2020. Those prices were unheard of. We were getting extremely good prices. We went from $70 a ton to over $100 a ton this year. So a significant increase. We really benefited from the contract we had before.
Thank you very much.
Don't go too far. Okay, based on that, don't go, I'm going to have another question for you, or someone who might be you to answer. How many miles of paving will we get out of this year's? I'm just trying to think of planning for future years. If we plan a dollar amount that we want to spend every year for paving, or if we plan based on the number of miles of road that we have, and we say we want to do so many per year, and what does that look like in terms of cost based on the increased cost of paving?
Can someone answer that?
So this year, that'll get us 2.47 miles, about 2.5 miles of road. That puts us with 42 miles of road on about a 20-year plan. We would like to be on a 10-year plan with the costs have risen over the past few years, where that would make that nearly impossible to complete. So I'm having to stretch dollars wherever I can. I mean, even this year's numbers would have been over 500,000. I'm having to do some of my own shouldering, having to lighten up some of the material in places to make it happen at the numbers we're at. So we're getting about 2.5 miles a year.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'll try to be quick.
Introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, I'm Irene Barber, Layton Road. New road, woohoo! Curious about, you're saying, sorry, one of the selectmen, one of the Roys, mentioned about how if we don't approve the budget for dealing with the solid waste, that then we lose, it sounds to me, we lose the opportunity of Casella, who's the only one who has agreed to the bid. If we approve this budget, can we still shop around?
That's a good question. Is there an answer?
Typically, when you sign a contract, you're in a contract, so to get out of it would...
But you were saying that the budget that we're approving is not actually approving the contract, it's approving a budget.
Right, it's approving the first year of the 5-year budget.
Okay.
And in the contract, Casella is saying they're gonna go up 5% or maybe a little higher depending on the trash consumer price index. So whichever one of those is higher, that's what they're going up every year.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yes, Ms. Roy.
Part of the reason why we created the Solid Waste Committee is because we recognize that this is an issue. And Emily spoke to one of the avenues that the Solid Waste Committee is exploring in terms of getting tonnage out of our trash. Wet food items are among the heaviest. And so where it's been said that if we don't approve this, our municipality trash collection goes away, because it went out to a request for proposal and we received one bid back, which was the Casella bid. So if we don't approve this today and we don't enter into that contract, our trash ability to pick up ends as of June 30th, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Over the 5 years, what the timeline that the contract is for, and whether or not the opt-out option is something that we can do, I think that that's a great point when they are ready to switch over to the automated system. I don't know if we can do that or not. If we can, that's definitely something the board would explore at that time. In the meantime, what we're trying to do is find a long-term solution over the 5 years, and in the interim, find ways for the town to get tonnage out of our trash to reduce the cost, because our cost is based on the tonnage that we use.
Yeah. I would like to join the committee. And I also just wanted to mention that whomever it was to talk about the compost, there are so many towns that do community composting programs, and I would love it if Durham could be on that progressive strategy. And I also and that would reduce tonnage. I mean, we all live in very rural areas. I don't know why we don't do more individual composting personally. But then one other thing is, my concern about I like the bins, but then my only other concern is the waste that like, a bin doesn't get attacked by crows, which is great, but a bin and a mechanical device is more apt to being poorly controlled for waste being emitted in the dumping process. So I just want the committee and the town to kind of start thinking about this in a little bit more of a thorough process.
Thank you, ma'am. And I'd encourage you to see the select people after or after the meeting and leave them your name for the committee. Yes, sir.
Charlie Cattell, Rabbit Road. For those of you who have food waste, there is a free garden to compost in Freeport, along with a silver bullet by the fire station. I've been using that for a very long time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Neil Berry, Stackpole Road. I can teach you how to compost if you want to learn. This is, the solid waste thing is a bit confusing because when this was presented to the Budget Committee, there was no opt-out option available. This Casella wanted money wanted the contract because they were going to have to invest in the trucks and so forth to do this automated system. So they wanted a 5-year contract to pay for their investment in the trucks in particular, probably 2 trucks. So I don't know what's going on here, but you guys need to get your presentation a little more clearly put together, because what you told us was 5-year contract, 5% a year minimum, and solid waste is going up.
Yes.
Mr. Moderator, Josh Kleingolden, and I'm sure you can speak better to contract law than I can. Is this better? And so, Mr. Moderator, I'm sure you can speak better to contract law than I can, but I think the purpose of this contract for Casella is we are going to this new system. It takes time for them to order the new truck, and when that truck is ready, we will go to this system. I think we as a town have to say we are doing this, or we're going to go without public pickup, and if we have these issues, the board will then needs to take them to Casella to address them. So I think the opt-out is never going to happen because it completely defeats the purpose for Casella, and that is to save them money. So this is a take it or leave it, and if we take it, the board understands the town's concerns. I think we've raised some of these concerns, not all of them, and we'll address them with Casella. I think that's the best as a board we can provide today.
Thank you. Mr. Tom?
Yeah, and I'd just like to add there that, yeah, reducing tonnage is the goal here over the next 5 years and in the future. The less tonnage that goes into any barrel that's out there being picked up reduces everybody's costs. So that's the goal here.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Pierre Gastonguay, 110 Stackpole. By putting a 64-gallon trash can out once a week, as opposed to one 32-gallon trash can out once every 2 weeks, how do you anticipate reducing tonnage? Because right now, you're encouraging people to use recycling by the fact that they only have so much trash they can put out. By reducing the incentive of giving them a giant trash can that they can put out twice a week, I don't think you believe or that you understand human psychology. I'm going to throw stuff in the trash can that I normally would have thrown in recycling. You are going to increase tonnage exponentially. Thank you.
Can anyone answer that? Yes.
It's complex, but it's, well, let's go this way. Recycling as it stands and as it has stood for the last few years is a dead market, meaning we're not saving a lot of money by recycling. We're actually paying just as much for our recycling. The recycling market, due to whatever economic conditions you want to bring up, whether it's on the geopolitical side or on the domestic side, there's just no market for recyclables. It doesn't exist. It did in the past. So as far as saving money by the cardboards and et cetera, and paper, et cetera, that and plastics, that market kind of went away, and it's gone for a while now. Moving forward, again, we would love to present you with 40 options, 10 options. We have put this contract out to bid, I would say, this is the third time that I can recall. The first time, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, I'm sure somebody in the audience can remember. We had a private company, and we turned that down. That was going to save us a few bucks. Since then, every RFP, or request for a proposal, there's just one bidder for this town. So we are literally at the mercy of this organization. That is it. Or we go our own ways. Those are our only options.
Ms. Roy? Okay, yes, ma'am.
Ann Funderburk, Swamp Road. If we are at the mercy of Casella, there must be other small towns that are at the mercy of Casella. Have you talked to other small towns about this?
Can anyone answer that question?
A lot of towns are at the mercy. Pownell went through the same thing. They only got one bidder when they put it out to bid.
So is there any way of coordinating with other small towns and taking a stand against Casella?
I believe the Solid Waste Committee will be talking about all those options.
Great, I'm glad you're looking at that. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Roy?
I just wanted to address Pierre's conversation about the incentive. It's going to take a lot of education, and the incentive will be, because we're all here based on the budget, right? And so the way that we save money through the budget is to get the tonnage out of the trash, which really goes back to the wet food items. It will take a huge education process, but where people will see the incentive is that when we get the tonnage out of the trash cans, this number goes down. It's directly related to that.
Yes, ma'am.
Michelle Richardson. You sucked me into the trash conversation now. So that was my question, is our contract 5% or the higher of 5% or the CPI flat, or is it based on the tonnage? Because if it's just whatever we're paying now plus 5%, then the amount of trash doesn't matter. I mean, I think sustainability-wise, we all have an obligation to recycle more and throw less trash into landfills. But from a cost perspective, does it matter?
Can anybody answer that?
The 5% is based on the curbside pickup, so tonnage does matter.
Okay, so it's, if your tonnage stays the same, it will go up 5%. If your tonnage goes up, it goes up more than 5%. If it goes down, then it's less than 5%. I mean, in total dollars, the percentage of per ton is still going up at least 5%. Is that what it's based on?
Okay. 5% is for the service, and then we pay tonnage.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you, ma'am. Would anybody else like to address the question? Yes, ma'am.
My name's Claire Ross. I live on Oak Ridge Road. I have joined the Solid Waste Committee, but I'm not fully versed in what they're doing. I had missed one meeting. One of my thoughts and something I wondered if anyone else had considered is whether or not we would consider establishing our own transfer station where we would control we would be able to control our costs a little better if it was home-based, and then recycling could occur there. A lot of things, I don't know the answer. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, that is one of the options on the table to look at by the committee, is to look at creating our own transfer station or something in the middle. So it is an option that's going to be considered.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to address the question? Yes, Ms. Roy.
At our last select board meeting, the chair of the solid waste committee came to the table, and we had a conversation detailing the options that the solid waste committee will look at. One of them speaks to a comment that another member came up to make about regionalization, the possibility of a transfer station, the possibility of getting rid of, it's going to be a comprehensive look to be able to develop a long-term plan. If we approve this budgetary item in the contract for the next 5 years, that gives us 5 years to be able to develop a long-term plan, and that's one of the items. There's, I think, 8 to 10 that they're going to address and come up with a long-term plan for.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, Article 8 has been moved and seconded as written. If you would like to approve Article 8, please raise your card. Thank you. Please put them down. If you do not want to approve Article 8, please raise your card. Thank you. Please put them down. Clear majority having voted to approve Article 8. Article 8 is approved. Article 9, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $16,700 for community services. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded that Article 9 is passed as written. Would anybody like to address this? Yes, sir.
Neil Berry, Stackpole Road. Mr. Moderator, I want to amend this article to $6,700.
To what?
$6,700.
$6,700. It's been moved to amend the article to Article 9 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $6,700 for community services. Is there a second? I see a second for Mr. Simon. It's been moved and seconded. Would you like to address the question?
Yes, I don't think we should be supporting any scholarship funds, and I personally don't want to support a system that's producing the kind of society that we're living in. So please don't force me to give money to that.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Yes, ma'am.
Ruth Dodge, Quaker Meeting House Road. I would like to support this scholarship fund. I think we already are providing a scholarship in the town of Durham, and I would like to support that further. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to address the amendment? Seeing none, okay, we're voting now on the amendment, which is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $6,700 for community services. All in favor of the amendment, please raise your card. All opposed to the amendment, please raise your card. A clear majority is opposed to the amendment, so the amendment fails. Article 9 as written, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $16,700 for community services. Is there discussion? Seeing none, if you would wish to approve this article as written, please raise your card. Thank you. If you do not wish to approve the article, please raise your card. Thank you. A clear majority having voted to approve Article 9 is approved. Article 10, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $780,349 for debt service. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that Article 10 is passed as written. Would anybody like to speak about it? Seeing no discussion, we'll go to a vote. Everyone who would like to approve Article 10 as written, please raise your card. Please put them down. Everybody who would not like to approve Article 10 as written, please raise your card. A clear majority having voted to approve Article 10 is approved. Article 11, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $180,000 for the Fire Department Capital Reserve. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Jill Gastonguay, Stackpole Road. I want to clarify the wording. It says raising, and my understanding on the Budget Committee is we're not raising, we're just transferring it from, in a sense, one bank account to another.
Is there anybody who can address the wording of the article?
No, it's
Yes.
raise and appropriate.
My understanding is if the wording doesn't read raise and appropriate, that if the money doesn't get spent, it goes back into the general fund. And so by wording it as raise and appropriate, it stays in that account that it's designated for.
So to clarify then, we are not raising tax money to put this money into capital reserves. We are transferring it from our undesignated fund, or now called the fund balance, into the capital reserves.
Is that correct?
So, Mr. Moderator, the fund balance funds are general, not specific to a specific item or article number. So where that money goes, I think, is not designated within the article, Article 19.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to
Yes.
have Mark Roy speak to this, please.
Mark Roy, I'm the town's accountant. For all of your appropriation articles, you are voting to raise and appropriate, meaning raise in taxes. And then in your funding source articles, you are voting to reduce the amounts that have been authorized to be raised in the previous articles to reduce the amount of taxes. So technically, for all of these articles that say raise and appropriate, you are approving to raise in taxes the amount that you are, the amount that it is, it says in the article, and also to appropriate that for expenditure, or set it aside, appropriate it into a reserve in this case. And then in the future articles, you say, okay, well, in all of those other previous articles, we raised X amount of dollars. We now want to authorize the select board to reduce the amounts that we approved to be raised in those articles so that our taxes are not as much as we just approved to be raised. That's how it works.
And I'll ask, are you referring to Articles 18 and 19?
Yes, Article 18, it says to see if the town will vote to reduce the amounts authorized to be raised in those Articles 6 through 17, and then Article 19 does the same thing. It says, okay, well, we raised X amount of dollars. Now, can we reduce the amount that the townspeople have authorized to be raised and use non-tax revenue to support that funding or those appropriations? Or in Article 19, to use existing unassigned fund balance to fund those appropriations.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
This is a comment that's going to go for, excuse me, all the reserves. Sorry, Michelle Richardson.
Introduce yourself again.
Michelle Richardson, still on Patriot Way. The additional reserve articles, I would just like to congratulate both the Select Board and the Budget Committee for doing these. I know these have been something we've talked about for years, about trying to come up with a consistent way to fund our needs as we grow as a town, instead of having to take out large bonds and pay interest and have spikes in our spending. So setting up these reserve accounts is extremely responsible. I really appreciate the effort, so thank you for all of those.
Thank you, ma'am. Would anybody else like to address this? Yes, sir.
So just to give some perspective on this to the town, if we do not move the money that's coming up in the transfers that we've requested, any of the money, the tax rate's going to go up 10%, approximately. So the reserve fund that we have now is $3.7 million. We're going to spend $500,000 more than we typically do spending the reserve fund in years past. Eventually that reserve fund is going to go down unless, well, it's going to go down. I don't see any way it can't go down, probably to what the minimum requirement is over the next 3 or 4 years. So just keep that in mind when you're voting for all this stuff. Taxes are going up.
Thank you. Yes.
I just want to point out, I guess my microphone works a lot better than others. It is by design that we are asking to reduce the reserve funds. That is due to for lack of a better word, over-collecting in the past, and we felt that it is more responsible to spend down those funds to a recommended level rather than increase taxes to fund future endeavors like our capital reserves. So there's going to be a lot of talk about spending money out of the reserves. Some folks have called it the rainy day fund or the savings account. But as the chair showed earlier, we really only need about $2 million in there. And so we just didn't think it would be appropriate to continually ask the taxpayers to pay more money when we're sitting on roughly $1.5 million in our savings account. So that is a deliberate choice to send it out. It's a surplus, and we're trying to spend it down to an appropriate amount.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Kevin Netto, Quaker Meeting House Road. First, just want to clarify a little terminology. The last two speakers kind of used the term reserve fund, but I think what we're really talking about is the general fund, or what we used to call the undesignated fund. So we're not talking about spending down a reserve. We're talking about spending down what we have always called undesignated funds, because basically that is tax money that has been collected, and it is in excess of really where it needs to be. So returning that tax money to the taxpayers in the form of using it to offset a budget is the responsible thing to do. The other thing I would call out is Mr. Berry makes a valid point about reserves and in the future contributing to reserve accounts. We may not have as big of a pool of the undesignated to apply against that, but I would also call your attention to the bond schedule upcoming over the next several years, that as we retire bonds, and there are big bond payments coming off, I think it's a pretty responsible strategy to use that and kind of recycle it into reserve funds, so your net tax impact is really not that great, but you are continuing to dedicate that money to future reserves. So I think this is a sound strategy, and I commend you for it.
Thank you, sir. Is there further discussion of Article 11? Seeing none, Article 11 has been moved and seconded, and it's time for a vote. If you would like to pass Article 11, please raise your card. Please put them down. If you would not like to approve Article 11, please raise your card. A clear majority having voted to approve Article 11 is approved. Article 12, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $205,000 for the Public Works Department Capital Reserve. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that Article 12 is approved as written. Is there discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Everyone who would like to approve Article 12 as written, please raise your card. Thank you. Everyone who does not want to approve Article 12, please raise your card. Thank you. A clear majority having voted to approve Article 12, it is approved. Article 13, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $10,000 for the Municipal Buildings Capital Reserve. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that Article 13 is approved. Is there discussion? Seeing none, if you would like to approve Article 13, please raise your card. Please put them down. If you do not want to approve Article 13, please raise your card. Thank you. A clear majority having voted to approve Article 13, it is approved. Article 14, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $50,000 for the Eureka Community Center Reserve. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that Article 14 is approved as written. Is there discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. If you want to approve Article 14, please raise your card. Please put them down. If you do not want to approve Article 14, please raise your card. A clear majority having voted to approve Article 14, it is approved. Article 15, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $160,000 for the Assessing and Revaluation Reserve. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that Article 15 is approved. Is there discussion? Yes, sir.
Will Werner, Patriot Way. I feel like the last couple of years we've
voted on something regarding a reevaluation at the town meeting. I was wondering if somebody could speak to, if there's anybody that could speak to the plan for accomplishing it, because I think we've voted on two separate things in the past couple of years, and then, you know, what this money is going to go towards and be used for.
Can someone address that? Yes, Ms. Roy.
The question, whoa, everybody's microphone started working really well all of a sudden. Sorry. We have seen this question before about, we were putting away $60,000 a year in order to get to a place where we could fund a reval. There was discussion about doing not the full reval. It was a market assessment. And now we're at a point where our homestead exemption has dropped below a level that we can do a market reval, so now we need to do a full reval. That's one of the things that was in the presentation where it's gone out to bid, and the request for proposal came back that the companies wouldn't be able to complete that or start that rather until 2027. So when we initially went through the budget, we were still comfortable putting aside $60,000 to get us to the point where we would have the funds available to pay for it when we start the work. However, when the budget committee met, Mr. Berry brought up a good point that if one of the other towns dropped out that's ahead of us in having their work, if we have the money in the account ready to go, we would be able to fund the expenditure to be able to start sooner if possible. And so the budget, the select board took that under advisement from them, and we decided that we felt the same way. Basically, because of the transfer that we're doing out of the general fund, the money's already there, and it's basically moving into this account so that if we do have the opportunity to go sooner, it's sitting there ready for us to go.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Michelle Richardson, are all of these reserve accounts already formed?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Are all of these reserve accounts already created? None of these are new?
Yes.
Okay, good. And then, so my other question is, I see so we could, these articles here allow us to spend from these as well if needed, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so to Ms. Roy's point, if someone dropped out and we had the opportunity, you guys have the authority to then pull the trigger on those and make it happen?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes.
Mr. Moderator.
Unless you have a point of procedure, I've asked for Ms. Roy.
That's actually a question on the warrant, is that we're going to ask when we get to that article for the legislative body to vote to give the select board the authority to be able to do that. That's coming. That's something that we vote on every year.
Mr. Berry.
Mr. Moderator, there's a tremendous amount of confusion over the Select Board's ability to spend money, which is mysterious to me because it's very clear. The Select Board has no authority to spend money other than what's authorized by the state legislature or this legislature. The state legislature authorizes that a municipality can do a reserve fund. I'm looking at the Chapter 223. So the Select Board, the two types of reserve funds we can establish are capital equipment and capital improvement. The other reserve funds, they can't touch without town meeting's approval, including the one we were just talking about, the reval fund. They need town authorization to spend that money. So I just want to make that clear.
Thank you. Is there any, yes?
Just a second, what Heather said a moment ago, and to follow up with what Mr. Berry just said, that will be that is an article later on to vote to give that authority. So that is on the warrant for us all to consider.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Is that Article 23? To see if the town will authorize the select board to appropriate funds upon the request of the town manager as they deem necessary for expenditures in accordance with the purpose of the reserves? Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we would then a yes vote on 23 gives you the ability to spend the reserve funds that we're putting in place now. Great, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there further discussion of Article 15? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. If you would like to approve Article 15 as written, please raise your card. Thank you very much. If you do not want to approve Article 15 as written, please raise your card. Thank you very much. A clear majority having voted to approve Article 15, it is approved. Article 16, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $2,293 for the grants match reserve. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. If you would like to approve Article 16 as written, please raise your card. Thank you. If you do not want to approve Article 16 as written, please raise your card. Thank you. A clear majority having voted to approve Article 16, it is approved. Article 17, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $9,543 for the Union Church Restoration Reserve. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that Article 17 is passed as written. Would you like to discuss it?
Paula Erdman, Purdy, Hollowell Road. I would like to amend this to be $19,543. Because
well, before you go any further, I have to let you know that you can amend things down.
I can't amend it
You
up.
can't amend them up.
Okay, so.
And the reason for that is that the town meeting warrant serves as a notice to the people in town. And so if someone in town received the warrant and read through it and they were happy with all the numbers, they could go fishing today or they could go snowmobiling today and be confident that their taxes won't be raised beyond that.
Okay. So in the past, we've been able to come up and ask for, it's for the Union Church, an iconic building in town, and the money that we have saved for that town isn't enough to repair it. And in the past, we've asked for 10,000 more in a year to increase that amount of money so that it can be done. So is there a way to do that?
If it comes out of something else in the warrant, that could be done. Roy, did you want to say something?
It's the way that the article is worded. In the past, when we've done this, and we did this last year, it read to see what sum, which leaves it as an open article to be able to raise. The way that this article is worded, it can't be. Mr. Snyder is alluding to the fact that we are going to, I don't know how it's written. Hold on, let me read it really quick.
No, that's fine.
I'm not sure if Article 19 could be raised to include an additional 10,000, but that may be an area.
Thank you.
Our town accountant is saying no, it cannot.
Yes, ma'am.
Lois Kilby Chesley, Runaround Pond Road, and I'm chair of the Historic District Commission. You'll remember last year that what we did was we took $10,000 out of general, and we moved it when we had requested 10 and it didn't get past the budget committee. So there's actually 10 that was put into the account at town meeting last year that was then requested but wasn't released because I'll leave it at that. So the $10,000 that Ms. Purdy was just asking for is what we did last year out of general fund. And then this year, the budget committee and the select board decided to recommend $9,500 and change. So is it possible, I'm asking a question, is it possible to do the same thing again this year that we did last year, and that is allocate $10,000 from the general fund and still pass articles that we're on right now?
It's probably possible. I think I'd like to stay focused on this article for the moment.
Okay.
And if you can figure out a way to do it differently, you're welcome to. Ms. Roy? Oh, yeah, okay.
I'll come back. He wants to speak.
Thank
so-
you.
Thank you.
Mark Roy. Yeah, so last year's warrant article where they raised an additional 10,000 was allowed because of the way, again, the wording of the article, the way the wording of the warrant articles were last year compared to this year. Last year's warrant article to the amendment to raise $10,000 for Union Church Reserve was an operational budget article. It was not raised to be appropriated to be set aside into the Union Church Reserve. So that money was unexpended during the year and thus lapsed at the end of the year, and thus another appropriation would have to have been included in the warrant articles this year for an additional 10,000. The way the warrant articles are worded, these are what we are considered a closed warrant articles, so you can't obviously amend them upward, you can only amend them downward.
And can I ask someone on the select board if this is meant to be that $10,000 that lapsed and now has been recommitted?
That was our intent.
Thank you. Ms. Chesley?
Thank you. And I would like to speak on behalf of the commission as well, the Historic District Commission, and we did take a vote on this, and we did make a recommendation that this pass. And it goes along with, obviously, the other articles that have to do with the transfer of the building. But I wanted to just make sure that you realize that there's an appointed town committee that looked at this as well, and we support not only the money being transferred, but also the transfer of the building for the protection of the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there further discussion of this article? Seeing none, Article 17 has been moved and seconded as written. If you would like to approve this article as written, please raise your card. Thank you. If you do not want to approve this article as written, please raise your card. Thank you. A clear majority having voted to approve Article 17, it is approved as written. Article 18, to see if the town will vote to reduce the amounts authorized to be raised in taxes in Articles 6 through 17 by $2,562,114 based on estimates for non-tax municipal revenues. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that Article 18 is approved as written. Is there discussion? It seems there's no discussion of this article. So it's been moved and seconded that Article 18 is approved. If you would like to approve this article, please raise your card. Thank you. If you do not want to approve this article, please raise your card. Thank you. Clear majority having voted to approve Article 18, it is approved. Article 19, to see if the town will authorize the select board to appropriate up to $668,000 from the general fund's existing fund balance to reduce the amounts authorized to be raised in taxes in Articles 6 through 17.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes, Mr. Simon.
To make a motion that, to accept the Budget Committee's recommendation of $628,475.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that the Budget Committee's recommendation of $628,475 is approved. Yes.
Mr. Moderator, point of order on that, just purely a procedural thing, so we make sure that everything's copacetic. Because this is a closed article, we can't use the former method of moving directly to the Budget Committee's recommendation. There would first need to be a motion on the floor as it's written, and then the amendment can be offered.
Well, it can work either way.
Respectfully, sir, it's a closed article, so that is the procedure.
Well, what's moved and seconded is what matters, and if the board of if the Budget Commission or Budget Committee wanted to let the select person's proposal have a first shot, they could withdraw their motion.
Oh, Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
Just to
That's fine.
second.
I'm just looking to point out the procedural thing. I'm fine to have that vote, but technically, I think that the motion should have been found out of order, and they just put it on the table the right way so that later on down the road, nobody can dispute the process. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I was going to say to second what the gentleman just said, the closed article explicitly states to authorize the select board's number. So that is the article that we're voting on. So we would have to go forward with that article, and then someone could choose to to amend it. So it's going to get to the same place, but that is technically the procedure because it's closed and it says select board's number.
Right, because how would we, I'm sorry.
Ma'am.
Michelle Richardson, because if we took the other one and it's a closed article, we can't go above that, right?
Correct, that's correct.
So then we can't get back to the 668 that the select board has recommended.
That's correct.
I mean, I think the warrant is written as $668,000. And so I think that is, to your point earlier, like that is the amount that people assumed was happening. And if that's going to change and go down, then that's an amendment that would be made on the floor. But I think the initial motion has to be Article 19 as written. Yes, no?
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I believe the arguments are valid. I will withdraw the motion.
Mr. Simon, who made the motion, has offered to withdraw the motion, and I will accept that.
Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
Alan Purington, Day Road. I would like to make an amendment to Article...
Well, we don't have a motion on the floor right now.
Well, I'm making a motion.
Well, you can't amend it until there's a motion on the floor. So is there someone from the select board who would like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to move Article 19 as written for $668,000 from the general fund, existing fund balance to reduce the amount authorized to be raised in taxes in Articles 6 through 17.
Is there a
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that Article 19 is presented at the select board recommendation. Now, yes, Mr. Purington.
Mr. Moderator, I would like to make an amendment to that motion to accept the Budget Committee's recommendation of $628,475.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second? There's a second. It's been moved and seconded that Article 19 is amended to read, to see if the town will authorize the select board to appropriate up to $628,475 from the general fund's existing fund balance to reduce the amounts authorized to be raised in taxes in Articles 6 through 17. Is there discussion?
I don't want to take the chairperson of the Budget Committee's thunder on this. If he, basically, some people would look at this and say, why is the Budget Committee looking to actually increase our taxes? Whoa. That's really not what we're doing. That's what would happen here if this amendment is approved. But our philosophy on this was we did not want to deplete the fund balance. We have too much. I mean, this is the first year that we've had what we feel is a very thorough evaluation of our fund balances. And if we depleted it too much this year, we would end up paying for it in the future years. And that's why we are recommending the difference between the Budget Committee and the Select Board.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Jill Gastonguay, Stackpole Road. This kind of comes around back to my comment at the beginning of the town meeting, where our budget currently, depending on what calculations you look at, our spending budget is about 12%. And that amount is going to be there next year. And if we don't have fund balance to transfer, you're going to be going from what the select board, I think, is saying, estimating a 1.8% increase this year. Next year, it will be a 10% or more if we don't have funds to transfer. So it's not a huge difference, but the reason why it came about is because, again, I mentioned This year was a little confusing to me, perhaps others on the budget committee, trying to figure out the who, what's, wheres and things. And the select board came to us letting us know that county tax went up a lot, and they wanted to transfer money from our fund balance to cover that increase. And the budget committee members, some of them, said, whoa, let's put the brake on just spending our savings, spending our savings, spending our savings.
Yes, sir.
The reason our number was higher, like the previous speaker just alluded to, was that the county tax came in higher than we had originally anticipated, and the budget committee chose to raise and appropriate taxes to cover that increase in expense, whereas the select board felt it would be more appropriate to spend down our undesignated fund balance, because that is money we have already collected from you, and we didn't feel like it was appropriate to collect additional funds from you when the money we already collected from you is available to cover that expenditure.
Yes, sir.
Speaking on behalf of the Budget Committee, I just would like to rephrase Mr. Roy's comment. So the county tax has increased by 9.6%. The Budget Committee does not feel it's appropriate to use money that is in our so-called savings account to cover an inevitable tax increase. We can see how it might be reasonable to use monies we've raised in previous years to offset taxes for things the town needs, but a county tax increase is inevitable, and we don't feel savings should be covering that you have to raise taxes to cover a county tax increase. That should not come out of savings. And that's the difference between the Select Board's recommendation and the Budget Committee's recommendation.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Michelle Richardson. So, sorry I didn't write these down because I couldn't see the numbers on the screen, but what does the unexpended fund balance, what's after the 668 or the 628, what does it drop to?
About $3.2 million.
Okay. And the tax impact of the difference between the two recommendations, 1.8 to 2.1, 2.3? Okay. So despite my feeling like the Select Board's recommendation should be the motion on the floor, that was more procedural, I'm in favor of the amendment because I do think that you can create a bit of a cliff at times if you spend all of the unexpended fund balance at once. And I think a 2.3% increase is reasonable and fair. It includes the full budget for the taxes for the town. So I'm in favor of keeping a little bit more in savings so that we have it in a future year, but still keeping the increase manageable for this year. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes.
Can we just clarify that the 2.3 or 1.8 is estimated? It's not exact?
Yes, sir.
Kevin Netto, Quaker Meeting House Road. I am not in favor of the amended amount. I think based on the figures here, even the Select Board's figure leaves a very healthy balance in undesignated funds, and it is money that's already been collected from taxpayers. And I'm not persuaded by the Budget Committee's argument that you wouldn't use savings for something like this, because the tax bill from the county is just like any other bill the town gets, whether it's for road salt or a truck or payroll or anything else. It's just another bill. And if I have money in savings to pay a bill, then that's exactly where I'm taking it from.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I think it's important for voters to know, and I just have to commend Jerry, our town manager, and Mark on the thorough job that they've done with the town's finances this year. It surprises me a little bit that none of the residents have asked how we have arrived at a $3.7 million general fund. And I want to clarify that what the Select Board is taking into account
is that the way that we've arrived at that is by not estimating increased revenues. So as we've gone through the budget process in years past, we have always estimated that our costs are going to increase, but we have not been estimating that our revenues are going to increase. And so when we get to the end of the year and our revenues have increased year after year after year, there's always money that's going back into the general fund, or what we've been referring to as the savings account. That will continue to happen. In addition to that, any money that's not spent on any of the articles that we vote for annually at every meeting, that money also lapses back into the general fund. And so I recognize the concern that we're going to spend this money down. However, it is always being replenished by the increase in revenues and also the unspent funds from each article.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes.
And one last note that I wanted to make, because I've heard a couple times the comment about spending down the balance and worrying if we're spending it all down. The number we chose of 668,000 was deliberate in the sense that we have a $3.7 million undesignated fund balance, and the recommendation we received from accounting staff is that the bottom of that should be $2 million. So we wanted to systematically, year after year, come to you all with approval for a segment of that. And like the chair previously alluded, this would still leave 3.2 million, which is still a healthy 1.2 million more than we have as like our bottom level that we should maintain for cash flow purposes.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, we'll be voting on the amendment, and the amendment is the Budget Committee recommendation of $628,475. So everyone who wants to amend this article to make it read $628,475, please raise your card. Please put them down. Everyone who does not want to amend the article, please raise your card. Thank you. A clear majority has voted not to amend the article. So now we'll go on to would anybody like to discuss Article 19 as it's written? Seeing no one, I'll call for a vote to see if the town will authorize the select board to appropriate up to $668,000 from the general fund's existing fund balance to reduce the amounts authorized to be raised in taxes in Articles 6 through 17. If you'd like to approve that, please raise your card. Thank you. If you would not like to approve that, please raise your card. Thank you very much. A clear majority has voted to approve Article 19. Article 19 is approved. Article 20, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $9,130 from coronavirus local fiscal recovery funds, those are the ARPA funds, received by the town from the federal government for the following project: upgrades to the Eureka Community Center. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that Article 20 is passed. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. If you would like to approve Article 20 as written, please raise your card. Thank you. If you do not want to approve Article 20 as written, please raise your card. Clear majority has voted to approve Article 20 as written, and Article 20 is approved. Article 21, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $25,000 from the ARPA funds for the following project: computer-aided dispatch for emergency vehicles. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Everyone who'd like to approve Article 21 as written, please raise your card. Thank you very much. Everyone who does not want to approve Article 21 as written, please raise your card. Thank you. Article 21 is approved as written. Article 22, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $10,500 from ARPA funds for the following project: codification of the town's land use ordinance. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion? Yes, sir. Are you headed to the mic?
I was just hoping somebody could explain, Will Warder, Patriot Way. If somebody could explain what codification of the town's land use ordinance means?
Is someone able to explain that? Yes.
I'd like to recognize George Thabaj, Town Planner.
Yes, sir.
As you will recall, last year, the town digitized the tax maps to prepare those maps in a digital format available on the web so that people could access their property tax information. So it's pretty much a standardization, and so now what we're looking at is doing a project for the text of the land use ordinance to put that into a digital format. And part of this is, I've been working for the town about 5 years now, and I do this kind of manually, updating the land use ordinance. There are companies that kind of do this for multiple municipalities across the state, and so Jerry was approached by one of those companies to propose this. And so what we would do is create a more systematic approach to land use ordinance updates. And the other aspect of it is that the town has been kind of doing this on a reactive basis to implement comprehensive plan recommendations. So some of the amendments that we've been doing have dealt with things that are coming, like the solar amendments that we're going to be talking about in a minute. It's reactive. What this will do is hopefully get the town to a better position to proactively look at all of the ordinance issues and then systematize it. The other part of what this will do is there are going to be a team of lawyers that works for this company, and they will be looking through the land use ordinance for issues that some of which we've addressed that are not in consistency with the state laws. And so it'll be kind of a comprehensive review. So it's going to serve multiple purposes, and the amount of money that you can get this for, because they do this so systematically for so many communities, is very much, I think, a thing that's needed and appropriate.
Thank you. Does that answer your question? Good. Are there other people who would like to discuss this? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. If you would like to approve Article 22 as written, please raise your card. Thank you. If you do not want to approve Article 22 as written, please raise your card. Thank you. A clear majority has voted to approve Article 22, and it is approved. Article 23, to see if the town will authorize the Select Board to appropriate funds upon the request of the town manager from the town's reserves as they deem necessary for expenditures in accordance with the purpose of the reserves. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that Article 23 is passed. Would anyone like to discuss it? Yes, sir.
Neil Berry. This is a question, I think, for Mark, our accountant, but whoever, Mr. Moderator, can answer.
I can't hear you very well.
I have a question regarding what a reserve fund is. And according to the state law, municipalities can establish a reserve fund with multiple accounts: capital improvement, capital equipment, capital reserve, a credit reserve account, and a sinking fund account. So to Kevin's point about using the correct language, we call these funds we're giving money to reserve funds, but I'm not sure they really meet the state's classification of reserve fund. And the Select Board doesn't need our permission to spend money in a capital reserve fund like a capital improvement or capital equipment fund. They're trustees of those accounts. They don't need the town's permission to do that. So I'm kind of confused as to what we're actually voting on here. Is it okay to call these other funds reserve funds? Because they don't really have the same authority they do over capital equipment and capital improvement.
Can anybody address Mr. Berry's concern?
Mark Roy, the town accountant. Yeah, so the entire point of this article is really just to be as transparent to the townspeople as possible, to authorize the select board via town manager's request to expend from all the different reserves that the town has. Under state statute, it says there are capital reserves, but towns are authorized to create other types of reserves, just not state statutory reserves. They can create any other reserves that they want for whatever purpose, but they need approval to appropriate those funds before they need approval from the townspeople before they can appropriate those funds. So all of the reserves are in the booklet on page 54. Some are created by grants, some are created by donations. Others, the committed funds, are all those that were created by town meeting, meaning they were at some point created by a vote of the people to allow money to be appropriated from the general fund money to the reserves, but they are not able to be expended unless there is either statutory authority, which is what Mr. Berry is pointing out, or authority from the townspeople when statutory authority does not exist. And therefore, this warrant article essentially covers all situations, basically, regardless of whatever the statutory authority is. It basically says, hey, can the select board expend from the monies that you have set aside for their intended purposes?
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
So I guess just a comment, I don't know, I'm guessing most of these reserve funds don't have definition behind them. I'm quite sure the emergency reserve fund doesn't have definition behind it, because it was set up at a town meeting that didn't specify what it was to be used for. And I don't know about the other ones, so I just don't want the select board getting into trouble spending money on these things outside of what we're voting on is the intended purpose. I'm not sure what the intended purpose of some of these funds actually is.
Is that a question that you're seeking an answer to, or was that kind of a statement?
No, I think there should be some definition behind these funds, like the emergency reserve fund. Nobody knows what an emergency is. It's not been defined. I just think the select board needs to do some work on that.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Kevin Netto, Quaker Meeting House Road. I can actually help with the emergency fund thing. The emergency fund is different than the other reserve funds in terms of how the money is authorized. That's the one fund that requires a vote of the select board and the budget committee to expend funds. So an emergency is deliberately ambiguous here because it's up to these two boards as elected representatives to make a responsible decision on what's an emergency and what's not.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Mr. Barrett.
So that was voted on at a town meeting 4 or 5 years ago, and that was a one-time deal which expires at the end of the year. It's not an ordinance. And if we want that to be an ordinance, we have to write it up as an ordinance and pass it as an ordinance.
Is that a question?
No, that's a statement of fact. Ask the town manager.
The account exists, and that what you're referring to was a deposit into that account to build up that reserve.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Article 23 as written. To see if the town will authorize the select board to appropriate funds upon the request of the town manager from the town's reserves as they deem necessary for expenditures in accordance with the purpose of the reserves. If you would like to approve that as written, please raise your card. Thank you. If you would not like to approve that as written, please raise your card. Thank you. Article 23, a majority having voted to approve it, is approved. Article 24. To see if the town will vote to enact amendments to the land use ordinance as set forth in the document Town of Durham Land Use Ordinance as adopted at town meeting April 1, 2023. Proposed revisions for town meeting April 6, 2024. Part 1. Draft amendments to implement comprehensive plan recommendations for housing diversity and to comply with state law on housing density. Articles 4, 5, 16, and 19. To make greater allowance for accessory apartments and to increase lot sizes where state law requires multiple full-size dwelling units on a single lot. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that Article 24 is approved as written. Would anyone like to discuss it?
I'm not sure if I'd like to, but I will. This is an article in response to a law the state passed back in the summer of 2022 that has a misnomer of a name, talks about affordable housing.
And rather than go into a lot of detail, the chairman of the select board, I think, has done an excellent job of kind of laying it out. We've had a series of meetings over the past 2 years to discuss this. And I think people have had a chance to attend the meeting, see it on the website. In addition, I believe there's still some handouts over there. But this is the result of about 2 hard years of work by the planning board, and in particular, Mr. Thabarge. And Mr. Thabarge, the town planner, and I are both available to answer questions.
Thank you very much. Is there any further discussion, questions, or comments? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote of Article 24 as written. If you would like to approve Article 24 as written, please raise your card. Thank you. If you do not want to approve Article 24 as written, please raise your card. A clear majority having voted to approve Article 24 as written, Article 24 is approved. Article 25, to see if the town will vote to enact amendments to the land use ordinance as set forth in the document Town of Durham Land Use Ordinance as adopted at town meeting April 1, 2023, proposed revisions for town meeting April 6, 2024. Part 2, draft amendments to enact standards for solar energy systems, Articles 3, 5, 8, and 19, to establish submission requirements, review procedures, and performance standards for solar energy systems. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that Article 25 is passed as written. Is there discussion?
Again, this is another article, and this one was developed in coordination with the Conservation Commission taking the lead on it, and I'd like to thank them for the hard work, and again, Mr. Thabarge. But as the chairman of the select board said, we currently have no rules that apply to solar farms, solar panels, and so we're somewhat at the mercy of developers or other people coming in who want to do stuff. We do have a very convoluted process to get to a decision on it, but this lays out the rules for homeowners and also developers who want to come to town. Before they get here, they know what the rules are that they have to follow. So I think it's been well covered over a whole bunch of formal hearings, and the Conservation Commission is here to answer questions as well as Mr. Thabarge and I.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Neil Berry. I'd like to give you, the town, a few reasons to vote no on this amendment. Last summer, I asked the select board to consider promoting a ban on commercial solar farms. And probably like most of you folks, I'm not opposed to rooftop solar. Makes a lot of sense as long as I'm not subsidizing it. But I am opposed to commercial solar farms. Every time I drive by a field in Durham and picture it dotted with solar panels from China, my heart sinks. And so I want to encourage you to vote no on this. I'm assuming there are a couple of reasons why you'd vote yes. One of them is CO2 pollution from fossil fuels, and the other is financial. So I got to be brief, but I want to refer you to a group called the CO2 Coalition. If most of us only get 6 o'clock news information on CO2 and what we hear from Washington, we're woefully misinformed. The CO2 Coalition is a group of 150 scientists who basically are telling us CO2 is not a problem. I'm not going to give you all the details, but these are world-renowned scientists, and they know what they're talking about. One fact, and the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, agrees with this. CO2 has a saturation point in the atmosphere when it comes to the greenhouse effect. And if you double the CO2 in the atmosphere, which will take 100 years, you increase its greenhouse effect by 1%. Not a 1% increase in temperature, you increase its greenhouse effect by 1%. Financially, solar farms and wind power are increasing our electricity costs. Everyone knows electricity costs have gone up a lot in the last decade. Every time one of those things goes up, we're paying for it. We're subsidizing it big time with tax dollars, as well as we're paying power plants like oil-fired, gas-fired, and hydro plants to sit idle while these things are turning out money. And these guys have contracts. Every power plant in the state has a contract. And whether they're sitting idle or not, they're getting paid. So when the sun goes down and the wind stops blowing, we still need all the power the state requires from typical historical power generation. That's not going away. Solar power is not decreasing energy costs, it's increasing energy costs. And the third one, maybe the most important one, is this stuff's made in China. The profits go to the Chinese Communist Party, who has been pumping fentanyl into this country by the tons. 73,000 people, kids mostly, were killed in 2022 from fentanyl overdoses. I don't want our money going there.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Joe Roy, Pinkham Brook Road. Just assure Neil, my solar panels are from Canada that are on my roof, so they're not all sourced in one location. Part of the process of this whole solar ordinance is to realize that as property owners in the town of Durham, you have the rights to do certain activities on your property that may or may not impact your operations. And so currently, we're trying to strike a balance of allowing people to explore options to generate income or electricity on their property, but at the same time being held to the same standards we hold other construction operations in the town. So for example, we have code enforcement related to buildings, and we have code enforcement related to any other structure. Currently, we lack any code associated with the solar ordinance, and it would be a similar permitting process as putting a new breaker on your circuit board. So the planning board took the activities necessary to come up with a really comprehensive plan that just deals with simple things like what are the standards that you need to meet for electrical work, what are the setbacks that you need to have, how do you make sure that it's not impacting the rural character by incorporating necessary vegetative buffering and things of that nature. So we find that this is a really good balance between meeting some people's goals on their own property, but also maintaining rural characteristic and making sure that standards that we use for all other construction activities are applied here.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Jill Gastonguay, Stackpole Road. Can you make an amendment to an ordinance?
You cannot.
Okay. Am I correct in the reading of the way the ordinance is written? If somebody wants to come in with what I label a commercial solar farm, I think it's what the planning board labels as large, that I read that they can't cut down any vegetation. Did I interpret that correctly?
Is there someone who knows the answer to that question?
The proposed regulations for solar development would be the same as any other form of development. And so you would be able to selectively cut vegetation necessary for construction of the proposed solar energy system. It does provide general requirements for vegetative buffers. And so one of the things that this ordinance draft does is favors retention of existing buffers over creation of new vegetative buffers that take time to develop and usually aren't as effective as natural buffers. So there is language in there in terms of clearing and cutting of vegetation, but it is not an absolute prohibition on clearing of vegetation.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Yes, sir.
Neil Berry. 70% of the solar panels in this country are made in China. I find it kind of humorous that you want to open up land use to people, let people do what they want with their land. Land use ordinances, by definition, restrict what people can do with their land. And last year, the town voted to let the beginning with habitat overlay restrict all kinds of stuff that people could do with their land. So I don't buy that argument at all.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Is my understanding correct that if this amendment were to fail, there would be no rules regulating a solar farm so that a solar farm could go up, and that is the complete opposite of what Mr. Berry is looking for to happen?
Is there someone who can answer that question?
That is correct.
And so,
well, let me qualify that a little bit. There is a process on conditional use that we would look at, but there's no set standards to that. And so you run into all kinds of, we can't apply that standard to me, legal issues. So this is clear. Not having an ordinance will not stop people from coming in. It will probably make it easier for them to come in.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yes, well, yes, ma'am.
And just to follow up on Mr. Talbot's point, and I'm sure Jess will expand upon this as well, there is the land use ordinance in place with the conditional use permits and things like that, but like Mr. Talbot said, if he and the planning board disapproved the project, they don't have any sort of grounds, and they would be open for challenge from the developer. So without a process like this, they can't establish rules like you need to have a setback or you need to have access for fire control or anything like that.
Yes, ma'am.
Jess Costa, 35 Brianna Drive, Chair of the Conservation Commission. I just want to reiterate what Joe and John Talbot just said, that if this ordinance passes or not, commercial solar can still come in, but it won't have these standards that are proposed to regulate it. We've already had solar proposals in this town, and we don't have standards yet. This ordinance sets safety and electrical standards and visual and property setbacks. So the Durham Conservation Commission encourages the approval of this ordinance.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Heather Roy, Hollowell Road. Two things that are near and dear to my heart are our rural character and also trying to find ways to supplement the tax base. If this doesn't pass, this kind of leads into what I think is the next question on the warrant about being able to establish a fee. If we don't have an ordinance to tie a fee to, we can't charge a commercial developer looking to do a solar farm in Durham. Anything other than a conditional use permit fee, which I believe right now is $250. $225. Throughout the process, I admit that I don't have a lot of technical knowledge about the solar farm or any of those aspects, but what I really paid attention to through the process was the buffering. I really hammer home on any project, whether it's a subdivision, this solar ordinance, we're eventually going to have to get to a cell tower situation, is all about the buffering to protect our rural character. And I think that the Conservation Commission, in working with the planning board and with the town planner, have done a really good job in terms of what the buffering is going to look like if a commercial farm comes in, because I agree with Mr. Berry's point that it would be very sad to see our beautiful fields scattered with solar panels, and I think that the buffering that they've created is going to really help mitigate that view. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
What I haven't heard today is why we're even considering allowing commercial solar farming. And I think I also want to put out there, if you don't want the large solar farm, you can vote no this year on the ordinance, and perhaps they'll come back next year without allowing commercial solar farming in Durham, because I don't want commercial solar farming in Durham. I'm fine with the small, I'm fine with the medium, but I really don't want to go walk through the woods and run into fencing and acres of solar.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Will Werner, Patriot Way. I have a question that I'm hoping somebody can answer procedurally regarding planning board approval of a commercial project. It's my understanding that, let's say, if somebody came and applied to the planning board for putting in a commercial solar farm today, as long as that proposal met all of the submission requirements, the planning board would be legally obligated to approve that proposal. Could somebody clarify that question or answer that question?
Does someone have an answer to that? I mean, I believe the answer is yes.
I believe you're correct. There are standards that we could apply in terms of impact on the environment, but it's not something that, well, I don't like solar panels, or I don't think you're far enough away from the road because that's my opinion. And it changes with, the planning board members, I can say, work very hard and have the best interest of Durham in hand. But it's very hard to tell somebody, hey, you're not meeting the standards when there are no standards to meet, if I will.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That answered my question.
Yes, sir.
Kevin Nettle, Quaker Meeting House Road. I would say if your objective is to prevent large solar commercial projects, then you should absolutely vote in favor of this amendment, because it's at least an intermittent step towards a larger action if you want. So this would give some protection and standards to apply to a large project if it should come, but that doesn't prevent a subsequent ordinance proposal in the future that, for instance, would limit any solar project to a maximum size. I mean, we could absolutely do that as an ordinance, but this is an incremental step to protect the town and have standards, so if that's your goal, then you should definitely vote yes on this.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Joe Roy, Pinkham Brook Road, just to kind of second what Kevin said. If this were to be, if the goal is to put restrictions on solar development, if we were to vote this down today, that would open the town to more or less unregulated solar development with very little regulatory authority assigned to any board. And the challenge to think about is that when solar developers are looking for places to develop, they're looking for a number of things, including access to phase 3 transmission lines, which we have multiple running through the town of Durham, and then open space that doesn't require clearing, which there's a lot in Durham. And then from there, they're going to reach out to landowners who fall within that area and start offering up a financial incentive for them to develop. Sometimes that's just too good to say no. Other times it might be something they want to negotiate with. So if we don't approve a solar ordinance right now, it's very likely that over the next year, developers could exploit our lack of ordinance and push towards a more developing projects. So for example, we know that already several developers and several consulting firms have done surveys throughout town to analyze the feasibility for different projects, and this being voted down today, in my mind, might signal a green light of open to build. And we just want to be thoughtful that if we're trying to make sure we're being more restrictive on the standards at minimum, we would want to accept something here. And then if people are concerned about the maximum allowable size, that gives us a year to have standards in place and then explore other options. And I think that many boards in town will be open to helping explore those sorts of options in the coming year.
Thank you, sir. Is there further discussion of Article 25? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. If you'd like to approve Article 25 as written, please raise your card. Thank you very much. If you do not want to approve Article 25 as written, please raise your card. Thank you very much. A clear majority having voted to approve Article 25, it is approved as written. Article 26, to see if the town will vote to enact amendments to the land use ordinance as set forth in the document Town of Durham Land Use Ordinance as adopted at town meeting April 1, 2023. Proposed revisions for town meeting April 6, 2024. Part 3, draft amendments to codify certain fees for inclusion in the fee schedule, Article 18, to enact new fees for certain permitting services provided by the town. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded that Article 26 is approved as written. Is there discussion?
Again, I think the chairman of the select board covered this well. We've had meetings at the planning board level on this, and there's really not much more to say.
Thank you very much. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Everyone who would like to approve Article 26 as written, please raise your card. Thank you very much. Everyone who would not like to approve Article 26 as written, please raise your card. Thank you very much. Article 20, a clear majority having voted to approve Article 26 as written, Article 26 is approved.
Mr. Moderator, the only thing I'd like to add is to thank the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission and the town staff for all the help putting these things together. So thank them very much.
I think. Moving on to Article 27, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Select Board on behalf of the town to transfer the property located at 744 Rollsboro Road, Durham, Maine, also known as the Union Church, to the Durham Historical Society by means of a quitclaim deed. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Seconded.
Did you see the motion or the? Yeah, I think the clerk got it. I just wanted to make sure. Is there discussion on Article 27? Yes, ma'am.
Michelle Richardson, at Patriot Way. I just wanted to confirm, so the Historical Society is a 501c3, so they would be tax exempt, so this doesn't incur additional taxes for them. Great. And my question was a little more on the rationale, because it doesn't seem like it gives them the ability to access the funds to improve it. It sounds like there's been some disconnect over the years around money allocated to them, but the select board not authorizing them to spend those funds. Does this change that in any way? Because I feel like the other article, they're spending in conjunction, but in theory, the select board could block access to those funds. So what's the benefit to either the town or the Historical Society of actually giving them the deed to the property?
Mr. Selectman?
So, the money that's been set aside today that totals, I think it's $31,175 total in that account, is the taxpayer money. And as a board member, my position is, and I think the other board members agree, though I won't speak for them, that we as stewards of the town have an obligation to ensure the money is spent in a manner, the manner in which it is intended. And so what the prior article did was put this money aside, say, tells the Historic Society, come to the town manager with the fund, with a request for funds, and that will be approved for the specific purpose of the repairs to the Union Church. So it gives them the option, the ability to use the money with the essential final approval by the town manager, because it's town money. And that's something that I felt strongly was necessary. In my current line of work, we see a lot of people stealing from businesses, and from professionals down to whatever. And so, not that we expect that to happen or think it would happen, but I think it's a way for us to protect the town money, and that's necessary. So that's why we've worded it that way.
And I understand the rationale. I guess my question was, why deed the property to them? Like, what's the benefit to deeding the property to them?
I think because they have access to certain grants and other funds that the town might not have the ability to receive, and it's something that they have requested and we think is appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, yes.
Just to throw it out there, the board did put in place a committee who looked at this particular building and site and gave us the various options that we could maybe deploy over the years. And their conclusion was for us to hand this over to them. So we did do a lot of due diligence, and this was based off of the decision of the board, but also with the influence of the committee that was put in place.
Yes, Ms. Roy.
When the committee assessed the situation, we've allocated $31,000 and change as a legislative body. There's so much more work that needs to be done to this building than what $31,000 is going to cover. And so part of the assessment was the financial impact to the town if we're going to maintain or bring the building back to where it needs to be. That would have been a huge expense for the taxpayers that the Historical Society has committed to taking on. And so that was part of the decision process in order that the recommendation came to transfer the property to them. One other thing that I'd like to add is that the previous vote that we took about giving the select board the authority to be able to spend money out of reserves, I don't remember exactly what the wording is, that situation in the past has led the select board to only be able to authorize funds if there was an emergent or safety need to be able to spend it. So like when the roof needed to be repaired, the select board had the authority at that point to release those funds to be able to repair the roof. If we can't prove that there's a safety situation or an emergent situation, until that vote happened today, giving the select board the authority to be able to release those funds, our hands have been tied. So that was also part of why that question was on the warrant today, to be able to, in conjunction with the town manager's recommendation and them bringing their receipts to the town for the work that needs to be done, be able to to release those funds to them accordingly. I really advocated on behalf of not having to have that process go through the select board because that has held them up in the past. But after consulting with the town attorney, that's the legal process that has to happen in order to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there further discussion of this article? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. If you'd like to approve Article 27 as written, please raise your card. Put them down. If you do not want to approve Article 27 as written, please raise your card. A clear majority having voted to approve Article 27, it is approved as written. Article 28, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Select Board to spend the funds in the Union Church Restoration Reserve account in conjunction with the Durham Historical Society for repairs and maintenance of the Union Church. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion of Article 28? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. If you would like to approve Article 28 as written, please raise your card. Thank you very much. If you do not want to approve Article 28 as written, please raise your card. Thank you very much. A clear majority having voted to approve Article 28, it is approved as written. Article 29, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Select Board to seek, accept, and disperse grant funds from private, state, or federal agencies for the purpose so designated in each specific grant. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion of Article 29? Yes, ma'am.
Can I make a motion to combine all the rest of the articles?
You can, as are the rest of these all, I haven't looked before, but are the rest of these all standard business articles?
That's my non-business opinion, but.
They seem to be. Does anybody object to considering Articles 29 through 39 in one motion? Seeing no objection, we'll deal with these all together. So you can have to sit and listen to me read for a little while, but after that we can handle them all together. To see if the town, Article 29, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Select Board to seek, accept, and disperse grant funds from private, state, or federal agencies for the purpose so designated in each specific grant. Article 30, to see what action the town will take in regard to fixing interest on delinquent taxes and establishing a date for interest to start. Interest shall begin to accrue on all unpaid taxes 45 days after the date taxes are committed. The interest rate on delinquent taxes shall be the maximum allowable by state law. Article 31, to see if the town will vote to leave the appointment of standing committee members and officials in the hands of the Select Board. Article 32, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Select Board to dispose of town-owned property which they determine is no longer needed or usable by the town on such terms as they deem advisable. Article 33, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Select Board on behalf of the town to sell and/or dispose of any property acquired by tax liens, and allow the Select Board to authorize the treasurer to waive automatic lien foreclosures when it is in the best interest of the town. Article 34, to see if the town will vote to set the interest rate to be paid by the town on overpayment of abated taxes at 2% pursuant to 36 MRSA Section 506A. Article 35, to see if the town will vote to authorize the tax collector or treasurer to accept prepayments of taxes not yet due or assessed and to pay interest thereon at an interest rate of 0% pursuant to 36 MRSA Section 506. Article 36, to see if the town will authorize the Select Board to resolve any disputes with parties having an interest adverse to that of the town which do not involve the expenditure of public funds, or where there are sufficient funds in budgeted accounts to allow payment for any claim which is to be settled. Article 37, to see if the town will authorize the Select Board to spend an amount not to exceed 1/3 of the budget amount in each category of the Town of Durham 2023 annual budget during the period from January 1, 2024 to the close of the 2024 annual town meeting. Article 38, to see if the town will vote to authorize the treasurer to borrow money on notes approved by at least 3 members of the Select Board and countersigned by the Select Board Chair to pay for the operating costs of the town. Article 39, to see if the town will authorize the Select Board to move up to 5% of budget lines that that have unexpended appropriations to other budget lines as they deem necessary to avoid individual budget lines being overexpended. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that Articles 29 through 39 are passed as written. Is there discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Everyone who would like to pass Articles 29 through 39 as written, please raise your cards. Thank you. Everyone who does not want to pass all of those articles as written, please raise your cards. Thank you. A clear majority having voted to approve Articles 29 through 39 as written, they are approved. I think you should give yourselves a hand for your good work today. Is there a final motion? I hear a motion to adjourn from Ms.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. That motion is not debatable. So everyone who would like to adjourn, please raise your card. Everyone who would not like to adjourn, please raise your card. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.